I want to welcome everybody who's joining us. I want to introduce Arthur Vessels, who's a Executive Vice President at WashTec, Clean Technology. We have Ryan Essenberg, who's the President of Tommy Carwash Systems, and we have Christoph Hafemann, who's a Global Category Manager for Shell. Shell probably doesn't need much of an introduction. Tommy Carwash Systems, for those who don't know, it's a US-based car wash operator, franchise, and manufacturer as well. They have 8 sites they own and operate, and they have some 50 now under a new franchise model. They also sell and distribute in many parts of the world. WashTec is one of the biggest car wash suppliers in both chemicals and in equipment in the world, and has over 40,000 car wash systems in the world right now. So to all of those watching, welcome to this new episode of PetrolPlaza Talks. I encourage you all to participate by writing in your questions in the chat box. I'll try to include as many as I can, and all your comments will be very much appreciated. So today we're going to be discussing what is one of the most dynamic markets around our industry, which is the car wash sector. Faster, more convenient services, new forms of payment, more professional equipment has boosted this industry over the last years and seen a huge surge in automatic car washes. So we have various markets which are quite established, including the US market and Europe, some Asian markets, but there's definitely a lot of excitement around this time. We're obviously under very difficult situations because due to the pandemic, and yesterday we had some elections in the US. So I just wanted to start by asking the three of you kind of like a bit of a simple question around, you think the role of car washes has changed during this pandemic? Because we've seen a lot of very nice initiatives in terms of cleaning, emergency service vehicles, and those kind of things which society probably quite appreciated. So just a very kind of like quick answer around that and how you see this role, continuing over the next year. Arthur, if you want to start?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I think what we have seen in the last months is definitely everything which has to do around payment and especially mobile payment has accelerated. So all our customers who have been thinking about these kind of new payment methods also for car wash, of course, now have seen that a payment at the wash or through the mobile phone is definitely the way forward. And during the pandemic, of course, this was a good way to sell washes. So I definitely believe that this will continue, and that these new payment methods and activation systems for car washes will definitely now have a breakthrough in the coming years. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Christoph, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, for sure. Shell having like 45,000 retail sites globally in about 80 countries, many thousands of car wash facilities we have. And under the pandemic, overall, we were able to operate under very difficult circumstances, but we kept our sites and the car wash facilities open. So more than 99% doing the everyday offer and job, as especially the channel of the forecourt has been considered in most of the countries as system critical. So we did not have been hit by the closure or mass closure of facilities, but clearly with a big hit in fuels volume. And those is lots of foot traffic we're losing. So for example, in China, we lost in February like 80% of the fuels volume, meaning that many people less on a site. And globally, it was like 50% at some stage, less fuels volume. But luckily for the car wash business, we could see we're not having that big hit. Yes, we obviously saw difficult business, but the customers who were coming were really doing more with their car. So we had a way higher penetration of car wash with the existing fuels customers. So we're pretty okay with the outcome so far.
Yeah, Ryan, maybe a few comments on that, and maybe you can tell us how did you business get through, especially kind of like the summer and running into September, October? Did you get back into normal levels, or yeah, how is that working out?
Yeah, and kind of echo what's already been said, but we've seen the same thing. You know, the demand for car wash services actually went up, it seemed, and we were deemed as essential business in most areas, being in the automotive service and in the cleaning business. So, you know, just one story, we had one of the Tommy's Express stores actually during a full stay-at-home order broke a record. We did 7,000 cars in 1 week at one location during the stay-at-home order, because people were more aware of, I believe it's because they were more aware of being clean and wanted to get out and clean the car inside, outside. You know, we saw numbers up. And so, you know, it's a weird phenomenon that we didn't necessarily expect, but maybe on one hand, people wanted to get out of the house as well. But we were very fortunate that what you said on the payment technology side, we were really set up for that already with the mobile systems for unlimited memberships. So when the virus came around, we were ready to roll. We did close some cashier lanes at times, and then were able to just wash contactless for our club members. So it was an interesting phenomenon, but being deemed as essential, we saw those numbers actually spike in some areas. Some areas went backward a little bit, depending on the communities. But yeah, pretty similar. I think that overall the net effect has been a gain year over year of about 23% of same store sales car wash revenue.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And actually, during the summer, GasBuddy did a survey. They do quite a few of these, and they found that the #1 priority for users going to service stations in this case had become hygiene. So obviously, most customers and drivers are far more aware about hygiene, and I guess that plays into the car wash business in general.
Yeah, like I said, I think the pandemic has shown that, you know, our business model is so robust. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule for sure, but in most areas, car washes have done quite good. What we hear from our customers, especially the network operators, of course, like Christoph said, fuel sales went down. Shop sales was at either a normal level or even increased, and the same applies to car wash. So this is, of all the bad news we had this year, of course, the good news. The other thing, of course, is that people who saw their fuel sales drop have now also seen again the importance of the retail activities in their shops and in car washes. And also, of course, the fact that car wash is still a good profit maker, because the gross margins on car wash are pretty okay, as everybody knows. So therefore, I believe our customers have seen that this big contribution of car wash to their total sales even gained significance throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, that actually takes us to a very interesting point that I wanted to bring up, and which maybe in this case, Ryan is not so connected, but I guess in many ways, yeah, because you do sell car wash services to other companies, and it's due to the lack of fuel sales, kind of already shaped up what could be a future of many gas stations. So they become more energy mix, there'll be more fuel types, become more retail points. So it's kind of like, you know, what will be the place and the role of car wash systems at future petrol stations as they become retail points? Maybe Christoph, you can go into this.
Yes, sure. So clearly there is going to be changes ahead of us on future service stations. So what we can see strategically at Shell, that the so-called NFR business, non-fuels retail business, gets lots of strategic attention, including aggressive plans for expansion of our footprint. So over the next years, we want to add more than 5,000 sites globally, and all of them with a shop. Yeah, that I think is very important, that the mobility might change, but we as Shell, and I would assume the channel as well, would adapt to the needs. So if it's hydrogen or if it's electricity, whatever it is the customer wants, we would offer to him. And even a Tesla would need a wash. So therefore, we still see our forecourts having traffic. It might change a bit why people come to the site. Maybe it's picking up a coffee, or do lottery, or buying cigarettes, or interacting with the vehicle, whether it's fueling. It must not be like fuel or gasoline, but could be other sources as well. And obviously taking care of the car with a wash or refilling some other fluids. That's clearly something we're expecting. And we see car wash as a part of a customer mission we call take care of your car. So anything you would interact as a customer with your car, could be a wash, could be lubricants, could be car care products. And this has been defined as a growth category for the future. So we are looking into the future with great expectations.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that Christoph makes, which is it doesn't matter what the car is running on, and it doesn't matter if it's driven by a person or if it's autonomous.
Absolutely.
The car will have to be washed.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the infrastructure is there. So all those operators who now operate fuel stations, including car wash, they have this infrastructure. These sites are there. And they are next to roads where people will still drive cars, no matter what kind of fuel this car will use. So I think, you know, the sites that are there today, the majority of those will be there in the future. And they will be there for people on the go, and they will need electricity, or they will need hydro-oxygen or a traditional fuel, but they will be there. And then they will also need to stop and have a coffee and a sandwich, and therefore the car wash on those sites will, at least in our view, also be there in the future. And like Christoph said, also an electric car needs a wash. So we look upon this with a very positive mindset, I have to say, because like I said in the beginning, cars need to be washed. The infrastructure is there, and we believe that car wash will be a significant part of the total fuel station business. Yeah, Ryan, if you want to jump in, I'm sure you've looked into this, and you're also getting ready for this future.
Sure. Yeah, sure. A majority of our corporate-owned locations have petrol stations and convenience stores as well, and so we've fortunately over the years, you know, put our emphasis always on the car wash, and it became the key driver of the profit centers. One of our locations today, you know, before the pandemic even, of a gas wash C-store combination, you know, we've seen that at one location, at least 90% of our gross profit generated for the facility comes from the car wash. And so we're starting to see, you know, again, before the pandemic, quite a few oil companies that are catching on to this in the United States. And we even have some oil companies that are building freestanding express car washes now, not even with their gas stations and convenience stores, because of the business model being so successful. So we certainly have been on the right side of that formula. We appreciate you know, that we landed there in the early days. My grandfather and my father quickly got into the car wash as a primary focus. And so certainly that's been the rock of our success. We're starting to see it though everywhere, where the gas stations are diversifying, and we're seeing a lot of money flowing into development of car washes here in the United States, even independent of the gas stations.
Yeah. Sure, Christoph.
I would have to add a thought or pick up a thought from Arthur, so that the ownership of cars might change in the future. So it's more sharing, ride hailing and stuff. And I think this is a great opportunity as well. So the average German car wash customer washes his car like 8 times a year, not that often. But if we move away from owning to, you rent it short term or whatever it is, I think the expectations will rise. So maybe in your home, on your kitchen table, you might accept when you sit at dinner to see some rest from the breakfast. You say, okay, it's my home and it's the breadcrumbs from the breakfast. But if you're in a restaurant, you don't want to see anything the person who sat there before. So therefore, the frequency might increase with those growing channels and new ways of using and owning a car. So I see a big potential in that change of ownership as well.
Yeah, that's a fascinating fact, Christoph. That's very interesting. And obviously, as you get ready for these kind of shared economy vehicles, and obviously the digitization is a huge aspect of it, and how to integrate that into your systems. I think the three of you have developed a car wash apps and highly developed systems. So what would be the technological challenges? And are you already in the business that you're doing day to day, kind of already laying the table for those possible future advancements? Ryan, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, right in line. We believe the same thing. The shared vehicle must be cleaned more often, and it also can't necessarily drive a distance to go be washed because it needs to have a fast turnover time. So we still believe in retail based and high density of locations that are convenient. And we see, a little different here in the United States. We've created a culture where we've taught people to wash once a week and consistently wash once a week, and that's what's raised the market so much. But we're speaking that will probably become a once a day or even multiple times a day in a shared vehicle environment. So that's part of why we're scaling up the Tommy's Express brand as a national chain as fast as we can, is cater to those services, because we believe they won't be working with independent 1 and 2 location car washes. So when we get into this institutional washing environment, we need to have more locations and a bigger, broader network that we're assembling, really catering to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating, fascinating stuff. And I hadn't really thought about the aspect of the car as something that when you're sharing it, you want to be more cleaner than when it is your own. That's a great point. So currently, the car wash business is kind of like rated at $30 billion a year business. By 2025, is expected to climb up to 41 billion by Grandview Research. And so we turn the scope to some kind of geographic scope. What areas of the world do you see as the big prospects for the car wash industry, and how hard will it be to create this kind of tendencies that you're talking about, Ryan, of convincing people to wash the car once a day, to be part of monthly car wash programs? So what are the biggest challenges there when it comes to bringing those traditions to other parts of the world?
I think the first challenge will be that in certain areas of the world, and we should not forget that, and this is still a significant part of all washes done every year, these cars are washed by hand. So first of all, we as an industry need to convince people that an automated wash, first of all, is a safe wash, is the better wash. And this is quite a challenge we found in certain areas. We have done projects in Asia, and I think Christoph can say something about this as well, also in China, where we really had to convince people to use an automated wash. So I think this is the first step. And what we have seen, of course, in the last decades in certain areas is that people wash by hand, then they start using do-it-yourself washes, and then the automated wash. And in these countries, in many cases at least, the step do-it-yourself wash at a wash bay is actually not taken. So they go from hand wash to automated wash. This requires quite some good marketing, quite some convincing. But once people have seen that the wash is first of all of a good quality, it's safe for their car, they will keep on using it. And then of course the next step is, can you get the right prices for those washes? Because in many of these new areas, washes done by hand is done relatively cheap. And of course, the next step is then to increase the prices. And last but not least, then you also want to increase the frequency. Like Ryan rightfully said, you want people to wash their car every week or every 2 weeks. In new areas, this is quite a challenge for the industry. At least that's how we have experienced it. And I think if it's done in the right way with the right marketing tools, it's definitely possible, and there's a huge growth opportunity because all those areas where there is a lot of people, a lot of cars, and especially new cars coming on the road every year, they finally also have to deal with, first of all, increasing salaries. So the hand wash will become more expensive, but especially the capacity is an issue. With all these millions of cars coming on the road, there is a capacity issue. And last but not least, in certain countries, also, of course, the environment plays a role. So if you want to have an environmental friendly wash and you want some capacity and you want this to be done in a decent way, then you also need an automated wash. So sooner or later, these markets have to make this step towards the automated wash. And I think this is an extreme interesting challenge and an opportunity for all of us in the industry. And I also believe this is where growth will take place.
Yeah. So I'm just going to put up the kind of, so I got this from the International Carwash Association, which I believe WashTec is part of. So this is just an overview of the types of car washes that we have in the States, in Europe, and Australia, where obviously in Europe we see a very high number of rollovers. In the US we see...
Sorry, Oscar, am I supposed to see some graphs now, or?
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen, but I don't know if you can see it.
I can see.
You can see it? Okay. I think the audience can see it.
Okay, I cannot.
But okay, I'll let you know what it is. It's just...
Now it's there. Now it's there. Thank you.
Okay. So we see these here where, you know, obviously in the US, a large number of conveyor belts. So according to this, you know, what for example, region like the Middle East, which I'm not sure how much you're involved, how do you see them kind of going into this? And what markets do you see, for example, that could be very high potential for conveyors, maybe with this cheaper land and bigger spaces? Ryan?
Yeah, so a couple things. I'll touch a little bit on the last point too. You know, our belief, we've all heard the phrase, if you build it, they will come. And we've seen that in many of those markets too. For example, Lithuania was a country we went into with a client there and built several washes in a very similar style to we do here in the USA. And they're performing instantly, we're performing numbers that rival what washes in the USA do. So, you know, we believe, you know, to get that capacity that Arthur mentioned earlier is also, you know, in the tunnel space. And in the tunnel washes, you know, we can consistently wash 200 cars per hour. So to build that capacity, we built it in other countries and it seems to work, but there is some evolution to that culture. But so far, by dropping it in different markets, it seems everybody has the same values. They all value speed. They all value their time in the day to get in and out fast. So, you know, what we're seeing in the U.S., we're doing a lot of what we call in-bay conversions. And basically, we can take out an in-bay automatic, and in the same space, we can put in a short tunnel system. Much of that's thanks to the belt conveyor system that saves us some space. And essentially in the same footprint now, we can put out 40 to 55 cars per hour, depending a little bit on the tunnel length. And that has proven to be a very successful and viable option for increasing capacity. So we're cranking those out as fast as we can here in the U.S. And converting a lot of these in-bays. So I think on that chart, you know, that you just had up, you're going to see that continually gravitating that direction in the U.S. Because of that frequency increase and gaining more. And we think we're still scratching the surface on getting to the masses to be club members. And when they're an unlimited member, they're washing, you know, 4 to 6 times a month. And we have to have the capacity first. So if you build it, they will come. I attribute it a little bit to, like, think about restaurants, you know, when people used to eat at home and gravitated over to going out for dinner, the restaurants had to be built first. And once they were built, then people could change their habits. And so, you know, you can't change somebody's habits to washing weekly if you don't have the capacity in the product to allow them to wash weekly, and especially in those other countries. So we see it greatly shifting quickly into tunnel space.
Yeah. Christoph, maybe from your perspective as the global business, which, you know, do you have one consistent strategy for every area of the world, or I guess you can like adapt to different places? I know you have different systems in Canada that you adapt to different countries. So, you know, how do you see that market from your perspective?
Yeah. So now I'm in a global role. Before that, I was in local roles as well. So I know both perspectives, and like the one size fits all is sometimes difficult. So I think today the product we sell is a clean car. And there's different ways to get there, and the ways might have different relevance for the local customers. So let's say in Canada, customers want non-friction solutions. So we should give them non-friction solutions. That's much easier than educate them like, we think we know better than you and you don't need to be scared. That's a very long and expensive process to do that education. So therefore we see regional solutions, could be with an automated rollover, could be even hand wash in some of the Asian markets to start with. I think it's about, for us at least, establishing Shell as a destination. So when you want to clean your car, you go to Shell. But maybe I would reflect on one market in particular, which is the China market. Which is really at a tipping point. So labor was used to be very cheap and hand wash was the preferred solution. But we started business there last year, and we are growing very fast in building new facilities. And the automated wash is highly accepted, though it is still in competition with the manual wash. But we had a great anecdote with being on site in China, meeting a taxi entrepreneur. Because in that part of China, there's a regulation that taxis need to be washed by law every day. I wish I have that in other countries as well, but the law says you need to wash your car every day. And so far, the entrepreneur solution was sending his drivers to the manual wash around the corner. And it took like 30 to 40 minutes to get this done. And this was the break for the driver. The entrepreneur was thinking, I don't earn any money at that time. And we sent one of his taxis through the automated wash. He was done in 8 minutes. And he was so excited seeing big dollars and saying, wow, I can shorten the time of my taxi not making money. So therefore, I think it's really about the customer benefits we need to show them, and could be convenience, could be speed, whatever it is might vary by market.
Mm-hmm. We have one question from the viewers, and it's if conveyor wash technology will actually make it possible to have unmanned conveyor sites reliably in the future. Arthur, would you like to step in on that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because this, of course, has been a discussion in different markets already for quite some years. There are some conveyors which are operated in an unmanned way. In Europe, where at least I have most experiences with the tunnel business, as you may know, most of the tunnels have staff. Taking care, first of all, of payment of the wash. Second, of course, selling a program. I still believe, by the way, that this, let's say, human touch to sell a program is still a good thing. And at the same time, of course, also to support people to get on the conveyor belt and to wash their car. This is the traditional way we have done it in many years. This is still the majority of the market. Nevertheless, there are some attempts to have unmanned tunnels. I think with different success rates. I've seen quite some of them in the US, and I think they were doing pretty well. I've seen some in Europe where maybe people are more used to this service that they used to get on a tunnel. and some of them were doing okay, some of them were not so okay. I can imagine, of course, that the cost of site staff is pretty high in certain countries. I can also imagine that there's a demand for unmanned conveyors. It is maybe not as easy as people may think. I think, especially on fuel stations, you have to be extremely aware of safety. For instance, oil companies have very high standards when it comes to safety. And this maybe is a little bit more difficult, but technologically things are possible. It can be done, but you need to consider where you can do this and how you can do this.
Any more comments on that?
Yeah, we're seeing kind of the same target, of course, in mind, always reducing labor when possible. I guess we're working on taking that to the next level, in addition to reducing the labor, as well as creating a club-only concept model. And so rather, we have done some unmanned type short tunnel car washes. We'd rather, we're steering the direction of what I call semi-autonomous car washing, where it's really a lightly assisted operation, but the process takes care of itself. Through new technology, the belt conveyor has certainly made that much easier system. So we're in the process of releasing a mini ground up tunnel model. That's a Tommy's Express car wash 55 foot we're getting ready to roll out. I guess I can kind of unveil now, but it's exactly that. It's a one person assisted operation where it's a fully automated process as in terms of the wash, the loading, and everything on its own, including the paying system. That's a club only concept. And what we find there is when we have members who are washing weekly, they're trained members. And we all know how to go through a McDonald's or a Burger King. We all have done it many times. And so the best customer is a trained customer when it comes to having that semi-autonomous. So we will go to the point of having a member sign up and go through somewhat of a tutorial to become a member of this facility. And we call this the Tommy's Express World Model Car Wash. And we think that's definitely the future, where they are trained members. They come through weekly. They can wash at their own convenience in these shorter 55-foot tunnels. And one person can manage that facility. We saw it work during COVID. It was fascinating to watch. I'd be sitting at home watching the cameras at our locations where we shut down the cashier lanes, stopped taking cash and credit card. And today we have about 60% of our volume in the US here is club members. 40% of it's the cash and credit card. So for that couple of weeks, we lost the cash and credit card, and people would pull in like clockwork, not even think about it. Two people would be in the facility, not doing anything other than just monitoring and watching. And one after another, people pull in, align themselves. We've been self-loading at all our washes for many, many years. So we absolutely think what you're talking about is possible. And we'll be able to do it in a 70 car per hour or so environment is our hope.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because obviously one of the major issues, I'm more closely connected to the petrol station convenience store industry, but one of the biggest challenges for them every year is to have appropriate, reliable labor, especially labor that can maybe carry out some of these new, as services get a bit more complex, and you want to have reliable and a good image. So I would imagine that for the car wash industry, it's a very similar challenge. Yeah, Christoph, have you experienced anything around that?
I'd like to add one task of the staff. Arthur was mentioning a few. I think it's the quality of the wash. So in many countries, the expectation of the customer is to have a manual pre-wash, because they know there are certain spots on the car which is difficult to clean for any piece of equipment, but this human element knows those spots they need to be well trained, of course, but they can really make a difference in the quality, and people know and appreciate that. But at the same time, of course, I see the big cost pressure, and staff is clearly one of them. So maybe in the future we might see a mixture. Let's say in high volume times we have staff because they help efficiency. And in slower times, maybe there's then an unmanned solution.
I think there's one more aspect to mention, and this depends, of course, on the area of the world, but many, at least the mature markets, the fuel stations, because we're talking about fuel stations here, don't have a lot of space, you know. So if you really want to have a high capacity tunnel on a fuel station, this is in many cases already a problem because of space requirements. Again, depending on the area, but if you don't have that space, then of course the in-bay automatic solution is still sometimes even the only solution you can offer there. If it's a tunnel, then it has to be a short tunnel because of space requirements, and then of course capacity is not at the level that Ryan was talking about a few minutes ago. So I think you need to look upon the market, upon the space available. Of course, you also have to look at the potential in the area. Not every area is well suited for such investments. Let's not forget. I mean, those investments are rather high, and if you have to make that work on the business case, which is at the moment, I think, more or less the standard in the oil industry of 10 years, then sometimes this business case is not so easy to make. And if you then also need to add staff, this of course also has an effect on the business case. So we look upon those sites on a case-by-case basis, on a country-per-country basis, in order to determine whether this should be an in-bay automatic, whether this should be a tunnel, and can be, and of course also depending on the wishes of our customers, who clearly have their preferences as well, of course.
If it's okay, if I can add to that too a little bit, what Christoph said, I think is really fascinating that, you know, there's a difference again in building out the market with availability of easy car washing. That changes the model. And so in our hometown, for example, you cannot drive from home to work without passing one of our car washes. We have 4 locations within a 2-mile radius circle, and last year washed 10 times the driving age population. So that means people are washing, essentially everyone's washing every week. And, you know, when you do that, the ability to clean the car changes. So when I talk about this club only model, you also benefit from having frequently cleaned cars. You know, sometimes we say our best piece of car wash equipment is frequency. You know, the bugs don't stick to cars that were waxed well last week with the good finishing waxes. And so the problem is the first step is building the car washes so that they are convenient, so that they're in mainstream retail areas, you know, often, you know, very close together. We have, after we do some shuffling around of locations and tearing down and rebuilding, we'll have as many locations in our hometown as McDonald's has locations. And so when you get to that point, you know, we can wash the car differently. We wash it gentler and lighter today. And we serve the customer's need for speed and the processing aspect of it. And so those numbers, just to give everybody a vision of what the future can hold, it's far bigger than what anybody ever thought, and how big the car wash frequency and utilization of product can be. But it has to be convenient, it has to be close to home. And to your point, Arthur, what we're doing in the United States is the business model is so successful that we're tearing down anything to make the space. If we don't have the space, you know, we're tearing down Applebee's restaurants right now in multiple locations, you know, and they might be nice big brick buildings, multiple different restaurant chains like that. We level them and go ground up. We're also tearing down old car washes that haven't been renovated in 30 years, and on great sites, level them, buy the neighbor out and expand it, because we're seeing these numbers beyond what we ever thought were possible.
Yeah, it's interesting when I listen to you, to all of you, that you know, we mentioned quality, we mentioned speed, we mentioned convenience, and these are exactly the elements that we as a manufacturer also look at. Let's say from the end customer point of view, we have a 4-dimension model, which hits upon 4 elements. It's quality of the wash, of course. It's speed. Like you said already, Ryan, people, you know, we don't want to wait 45 minutes to get a wash. We want some speed. Then, of course, we want it to be convenient. And convenient, of course, is much more than just, you know, how can I pay for the wash or how can I start a machine? This is also how is the accessibility to the site, how can I drive in, how is the signage, etc. And then, of course, there's look and feel. How does this site look like, and how attractive is it for me as an end customer to use that car wash? Now, if all those elements are in place, and if there is a right balance between those elements, then I also believe that we can create more market. You know, then from the offering, it's there, and then it's also more attractive, of course, for a customer if he can do it a bit quicker, if the site looks good, if it's easy to get there, if it's close to your home, then it's also, of course, much more attractive to wash your car more often. Yeah, and I've seen examples of big cities where we as WashTec thought, well, this city, you know, it's pretty full of machines now. Maybe we have reached a level that it's getting a bit full now. And then still new car washes came in, and all of them were actually doing quite good. And I think this is exactly what you described. So we can create market, and we can also increase frequency, and we can even increase in certain countries also the acceptance of automated car wash.
Yes.
So I think there's still a lot of potential. And when you look at fuel stations, and I think the same applies for Shell, many of their customers don't use a car wash today. So they have a lot of customers coming to their sites, but the conversion ratio of those customers to use the car wash, and I think this is a general thing, this is not only Shell, I think this is still pretty low. And there's this huge potential. So I fully agree with you. If you create this offer, and these four elements, like I mentioned, are in balance, we can definitely sell more washes, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something we've learned from Amazon over these years, that it's about creating the need for a product, and obviously Amazon just created the need to have things delivered on the same day, and the customer gets used to that. So I'm just going to include a few questions from the viewers, so they feel part of this discussion. So there's a few questions about water recycling systems, both at rollover car washes, and if they have been successful, and basically best practices for sustainability around the world. And that factor will obviously increase, and that's something that will definitely depend region to region. So so we're going to just touch upon sustainability in water recycling. Christoph, I don't know if you want to go first.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on that. So I think for water recycling, there's several reasons why you do it, or you should do it. So one is obviously you need to follow the local regulations. So there's some areas, some cities, some regions who say if you operate a car wash, you need to have water recycling, especially in areas where there's not that much water. So it's a must do. But on the other hand, there's always the opportunity to save some money, save some cost by reusing it. So therefore, it's an easy case, like always using fresh water with a certain price versus a big investment into the water reclaim system. And in many cases, this case is very good, and it makes sense to do this investment and have a better business. What we know from customer research is that currently sustainability in car wash is not very relevant for the customer. I believe this will rise in the future, but at the current moment, this is not a deciding factor for most customers.
Yeah, I think this depends a little bit on the area. If you look at Europe and you look at Scandinavia, for instance, people are quite aware of the environment, and there I think it is definitely a differentiator for car wash. In other areas, maybe this is not the case. What we see with our customers, of course, like Christoph said, if you have some regulations you need to fulfill, then of course you need it, otherwise no car wash. But especially, of course, in those areas where water is expensive, it's definitely worth to invest in a water recycling system. The good thing about it, of course, is that those recycling systems You can have them in different types for different types of car wash equipment. So we can adapt to this. WashTec has different product lines. We have those for the in-bay automatics. We have those for tunnels, of course. And then we even have different systems like sand filters up to fully biological without any chemicals. So we can offer anything a customer could need. I do believe that, especially with increasing water prices and increasing demands from the authorities, water recycling is definitely something that we will see grow in the future. And I also believe that if people invest in a new car wash bay, they better also consider the water recycling, because sooner or later you will have to do some investment into this.
Yeah, so as we're getting to the end of it, there are some, we're talking about basic trends around the world. I would like just to comment on touchless versus friction. We know that Europe is more friction based. The US classically is being more touchless, although there's combinations of it now. In other parts of the world, where do you see as the main trends when it comes to these two types of washing? Ryan, I don't know if you had any experience on this.
Yeah, these guys are probably better to answer it on the international level. In the US, there are certain pockets of the country that have primarily more touchless. Today, we don't worry about that so much. We deliver the customer the same consistent experience coast to coast, always friction. And we believe that has evolved a lot with the customer today, and they certainly prefer high quality product and the speed. And so there's really not much discussion or chatter or anybody contradicting that today very much going forward. Essentially every new car wash being built is friction.
Yeah. Any markets around the world, Christopher, Arthur, where touchless is still the preferred option?
So obviously North America is more into touchless, but I think our job is to offer choice to the customer. So there's equipment which enables customer to choose like the one or the other, because with both you could clean a car, and that's at the end what the customer wants, a clean car. Obviously the result must be good. And I think it's a very long journey to change beliefs of population. So in Asia, there's markets who never ever would do friction wash. They say this is gonna hurt my car, scratch my car. It's the hand wash solution. And then you see the hand wash process that those guys start with the rims and then use the same cloth on the paintwork. And you say, no way, this is better than an automated solution with the modern material used. So it's a strong belief, what we very often find, and it's not really fact-based, I would say.
Yeah. So let me just pull up another graph as we get into the end of this. So someone also asked where you see the kind of what markets do you see the adoption of digital payments accelerating in the near future? Arthur, you might have some experience on this.
Well, like I said at the beginning, I think this is definitely something we have seen during the pandemic. A lot of our customers are now accelerating their programs for digital payment, and of course this is something that requires, especially for network operators, some IT resources and some IT investments. From our side, we have developed, let's say, our systems in such a way that we can either offer our own solutions, either connect to solutions which our customer either already uses or wants to use. This solution is called the Digital Hub. The Digital Hub has been made in such a way that we can connect to third-party systems, or we can use our own systems, which we, of course, are also happy to provide. I do believe personally that the mobile payment by using the mobile phone is definitely the future. And it, of course, is not only payment, it's also choosing a program. It's also maybe a flat rate which you want to offer, so customer loyalty. And then the question, of course, is, especially for network operators, is this something I want to integrate into my own app, which I already have? Or do we also use a standalone app for car wash only? Of course, most of our customers prefer the first one. They say, I have my app and I want this car wash to be integrated. I think this is the standard for the future. Of course, it can be something which we combine with existing systems, because maybe not all customers want to make use of this. I think, you know, the main thing is that we offer people the solutions that they are looking for. In the past, the network operators wanted the customer to come into their stores to buy a wash, because everybody, of course, was of the opinion then they also buy a coffee or cigarettes or whatever. In the meantime, we have learned that most of these car wash customers, actually, if they want to use a car wash, maybe they don't necessarily want to go into the store. And if they want to go into the store, they will do it anyway. That's at least the opinion of many of our customers in the meantime. Therefore, it's needed that you are able to pay for the wash at the wash and not only in the store. And with this need, of course, digital payment is gonna increase and will be part of the standard in the future.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to finish the discussion without just touching upon, obviously, the US is such a big market. Ryan, if I could just get a brief, your perspective on the consolidation of the car wash market in the US. You know, we see all these different brands, and obviously, do you think the current financial impact of the pandemic, do you think that will slow down this process? Do you think that will accelerate it, this consolidation of the professional car wash market?
Yeah, so good question. For what we're seeing from Tommy's Express as a national brand perspective, it's accelerated us because people are putting more money into these alternative industries. And in terms of the consolidation, you know, there's a lot of private equity money flowing into the industry right now. They're gobbling up smaller chains, consolidating them together. And you know, from what I believe, you know, we're very strict in building a ground up process, a ground up system of new car washes with new technology. I don't see the ability to consolidate, and really because any national brand or national or successful brand believes in consistency. You know, we all know about the brands we like because they're always identical, and that doesn't exist in the car wash industry for the most part in the United States. Very few car washes operate or were designed the same way or look the same way. And so to kind of piece these things together and call them the same, it's not true. They're not the same. They don't act the same. They don't look the same. So, you know, I'm not really sure what the future holds with that, but it's a difficult road to try to add those together and group them together, and then try to get the outcome of a McDonald's experience, so to speak. So anyway, we're doing it in a ground up fashion. It's a little slower and harder, but everything's identical. Every experience the guest goes through is exactly the same at every location. So
yeah. And from the other two, if I get some last thoughts from your side on, you know, what the near future holds for the international car wash market. Obviously, we've seen high growth over the last years, and it seems that we're entering this new age of very modern, convenient car wash services, digitalized. So, any last thoughts on what the future holds for the next years, Christoph?
Yes, so I'd like to focus on two things. In general, I think we have a great growth potential as an industry. It's not I win, somebody else loses. I think it's about growing the pie, mentioning the German customer who's supposed to love his car, but only washes it 8 times a year. So he won't make, if he adds 2 washes, that's double-digit growth for the full market. The growth potential is clearly there, and I think the big innovation or the big change for the future in many markets will be the customer experience. especially looking into the forecourt channel. So on a tunnel, the experience might be already more progressed. But on the forecourt channel, I think enhancing the customer experience is really key to make it easy for the customers to convert existing fuels customers to not only fuel up, but wash their car in maybe one mission, and therefore establish, for us at least, Shell as a destination for taking care of your car.
Arthur, any last words?
Yeah, I think depending on the area and the country, it's all about finding the balance between those four elements which I mentioned, you know, quality of the wash, speed, convenience, and look and feel. I think this needs to be looked upon country by country, and even in the country, in the region that you want to offer car wash. I think flexible offerings could be part of the future. We have dynamic pricing on fuel. You could imagine similar things for car wash. This requires, of course, digital solutions, which we already have discussed, and of which I at least believe that they are definitely going to be part of the near future. And then, of course, it's all about the quality and the customer experience, like Christoph mentioned. And we, as a manufacturer, of course, we tend to focus on the quality of the wash. But there's much more than the quality of the wash. It's, I would say, the quality of the site, which includes the signage, which includes the site staff, which includes the cleanliness of the site. I would say, you know, the basics that you need to take care of if you want to be a successful car wash operator. And that is more than the machine or the equipment that you use to wash the car with. And we, as WashTec, try to support our customers with these kind of advices. We do not want to focus on the equipment only. We want to focus on the business as such, which is more than the equipment. But I think finding the balance between those elements will determine whether you're a successful car wash operator in the future or not. And we will support that with our digital solutions. We will support that with the knowledge that we have and which we can share. And I'm sure that this industry has a fantastic future.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank Christoph, Arthur, and Ryan. I think it's been a really insightful and interesting session. You know, if we take away some things, is that the industry looks very good. It's going to be even better, and I guess it's all about creating that customer tradition to wash the car more often. Also, it's very interesting to not be afraid of the autonomous vehicle revolution or the new sharing mobility, and they'd actually provide a interesting opportunity for the car wash sector. Made it clear that for forecourts and for petrol stations, car wash will remain and will probably even become a bigger part of their business as we go forward. So thank you everyone for being here today, and we'll be uploading this in the following days so you can share it with your friends and colleagues. And yeah, thank you to all and have a great day.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Same for all. Bye-bye.